Okay, so we've talked about development from the top down. We've talked about from the middle to the outside. The next one, I don't have a fancy name for, but it's that our large muscles develop first and then our smaller muscles. Again, not a huge surprise when you stop to think about it. Large muscles, the muscles used to swallow, those are working as soon as you're born. Okay, great. That's a large muscle. All of your intestines, your digestive tract, those are large muscles. Okay, those are working the day that you're born. Then you have big muscles, big plates of muscles in your body. There is the gluteus maximus, or your rear end. Okay, that's a very large muscle. Develops to some extent pretty early. Again, those little babies trying to ooch up their parents' chests so that they can snuggle more effectively. There's a huge plate of muscles across your back, which is called the trapezius. It looks kind of like a kite. That's another muscle that has to develop when you're relatively young, because if you don't, you can't flip from your front to your back or your back to your front. Then you have relatively large muscles that are called your obliques, which are on your stomach. Again, helpful for that flipping back and forth and really working out your core. Part of the reason why those exercise gurus are always talking about working out your core is that they are large muscles. And the stronger they are, the more calories you're burning. If you haven't noticed, babies burn a ridiculous amount of calories for how small they are, okay? Because they're constantly working out that core. We, as adults, have a tendency to move little muscles, the ones we use for talking, okay? These are relatively small muscles. And the ones we use for typing on the computer or writing a letter, these are pretty small muscles. The ones we use for balance so that we can stand up, there's lots of tiny little muscles in your feet and in your ankles that are required for you to be able to stand up, to be able to walk, to be able to skip, to be able to jog. You can't play hacky sack when you're a baby because you don't have control over those small muscles. You can't play hacky sack when you're a 6-year-old either because you still don't have control well enough of those fine motor skills in your ankles. It's why a 7-year-old's handwriting is terrible for the most part, and why in school they do handwriting practice at that point, because they're strengthening the very small muscles that you need for writing. We have times when we are exercising or developing larger muscles or middle-sized muscles, right? So the 2-year-old does a lot of throwing and hammering and hitting. Why are they doing that? Well, they're exercising these muscles. This is called your rotocuff muscles, okay? Your shoulder muscles. There's only one joint in your whole body like that. And so it takes a little bit of effort to figure out how it works. And that's a medium-sized muscle. It's not really big like the trapezius, and it's not really small like the ones in your hands. So we have to develop these before we can get to these. So if you've ever known a toddler or a 2-year-old who appeared to want to throw everything, it wasn't personal. It really wasn't. It's just a matter of the fact that they have to develop those muscles. If they don't, they're never going to be able to use a knife and fork properly. They're not going to be able to write. They're not going to be able to ride a horse. They're not going to be able to throw a football. They're not going to be able to do a lot of the things you have to do in ballet. Okay? So some of those things are things that add some spice to life. But writing, using a knife and fork, those are everyday tools that every child is going to need to learn. So Unfortunately, it means they're going to throw things and hammer things when they have to develop those mid-sized muscles. A lot of the things that kids do that drive us a little bit crazy are developmental imperatives based out of these big ideas that we've been talking about. Top of your body to the bottom, midline out, big muscles to little muscles. Okay? We've got this handled. You know all of this. It's not new. So let's see what is Carrie's last big lesson.